PM Shehbaz Sharif said in a press conference that Pakistan responded positively to the ceasefire for regional peace and to protect millions of lives. We fully believe peaceful negotiations based on justice will resolve issues like water distribution and Jammu and Kashmir, he said.
हमें कामिल यकीन है कि आबी वसाइल की तकसीम जम्मू और कश्मीर के तनाज़ा समेत तमाम तस्वीयातल मसाइल इंसाफ के तकाज़ों के मुताबिक हल करने के लिए पुरअमन मुज़ाकरात का रास्ता अपनाया जाएगा.
He thanked world leaders including US President Donald Trump, China, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the UK, and the UN for their roles in securing the truce.
इस मौका पर मैं सदर ट्रंप का खुसूसी शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहता हूं जिन्होंने जंग बंदी के लिए मुखलिसाना किरदार अदा किया. यहां पर मैं अपने इंतहाई मुखलिस और बरादर ममालिक सऊदी अरब, मुत्तहिदा अरब अमारात, तुर्किया और कतर के अलावा बरतानवी क़यादत, सेक्रेटरी जनरल अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा समेत दीगर दोस्त ममालिक का भी शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहता हूं जिन्होंने जंग बंदी की काविशों में अपना भरपूर किरदार अदा किया.
The PM praised journalists and social media users for countering Indian fake news and upholding media integrity.
मैं अपने सहाफ़ी भाइयों, बहनों और सोशल मीडिया यूजर्स का भी शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहता हूं जिन्होंने भारतीय फेक न्यूज़ का मुकाबला ज़िम्मेदाराना रिपोर्टिंग से किया.
He also thanked Pakistan's political leadership for unmatched, historic unity during the crisis.
तमाम इत्तेहादी और अपोजिशन जमातों समेत मुल्क भर की सियासी क़यादत और पार्लियामान का दिली तौर पर शुक्रिया अदा करता हूं जिन्होंने बेमिसाल इत्तेहाद और तारीखी जगानगत का मुजाहरा किया.
Acknowledging the military's role, he paid tribute to Gen Sahir Shamshad Mirza, Gen Asim Munir, Air Chief Zahir Ahmed Babar, Navy Chief Naveed Ashraf, and all officers and soldiers for their historic success.
Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee, General Sahir Shamshad Mirza, Sipah Salar Bari Fauj, General Sayyid Asim Munir, Air Chief Marshal Zahir Ahmed Babar, Naval Chief Admiral Naveed Ashraf, अपने हर जरी जवान और हर अफसर को खराज तहसीन और सलाम पेश करता हूं.
Meanwhile, the Washington Post reported that the Pakistan Air Force shot down 2 Indian fighter jets, a Rafale and a Mirage 2000, citing verified visual evidence. The report, backed by independent analysts, stated India has neither confirmed nor denied the losses, which would mark its worst air combat setback since 2019. Amid these high-stakes developments and growing international alarm, diplomatic channels moved swiftly into overdrive. The result, a full and immediate ceasefire was announced, one brokered with decisive backing from the United States. US President Donald Trump announced on his official channel that India and Pakistan had agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif thanked Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio for their leadership and proactive role in achieving peace, calling it a new beginning for regional stability. Vice President J.D. Vance praised the leaders of both countries and credited Rubio for his diplomacy. Rubio himself revealed that the ceasefire was the result of 48 hours of intense engagement with PMs Modi and Sharif, foreign ministers, army chiefs, and national security advisors. The ceasefire was welcomed across the globe. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called it a positive step that should lead to peace and urged both nations to address deeper, long-standing issues. UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy described it as hugely welcome, adding that de-escalation was in everyone's interest. The Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, in a call with Pakistan's 𝐶𝐚𝐰𝐧, praised Pakistan's restraint and reaffirmed China's support in protecting its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Turkey and the UAE also welcomed the agreement, with 𝐶𝐚𝐰𝐧 allotting their constructive diplomatic roles. Despite announcements of direct talks, confusion remains. While U.S. Secretary Rubio said that the two nations had agreed to start talks on a broad set of issues at a neutral site, India's Ministry of Information and Broadcasting contradicted this, stating the ceasefire was worked out directly through a call initiated by Pakistan's DGMO. India's Foreign Minister Jaishankar confirmed that an understanding had been reached to stop firing, but reiterated India's firm stance against terrorism. Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar confirmed the ceasefire was full-fledged and applies all across, everywhere. He dismissed Indian claims about Pakistani strikes, stating no Pakistani jets were downed, and no pilots captured. He also told DawnNews TV that many foreign governments have acknowledged Pakistan's version as factually accurate.
कंट्रीज के जो डिप्लोमेट थे उनसे जब बात की तो उन्होंने ये कंफर्म किया कि हमने चेक किया, आपने कोई ऐसी चीज नहीं की, और हमने कहा कि जब हम करेंगे तो हम बता के करेंगे और दुनिया को शेयर करेंगे, जो हम करेंगे वही हमने किया.
Meanwhile, PPP chairman Bilal Bhutto Zardari said Pakistan's military response was a clear exercise of self-defense under Article 51 of the UN Charter. The Foreign Office reiterated Pakistan's readiness for constructive diplomacy and comprehensive dialogue including on Kashmir, but urged the international community to prevent India from misusing terrorism narratives as a pretext for hostility. In India-held Kashmir, political parties welcomed the ceasefire, with Omar Abdullah calling it better late than never, and hoping it leads to permanent peace in the region. With Pakistani airspace reopened, Pakistan International Airlines, PIA, resumed operations. The Paris-Islamabad flight PK750, which landed in Quetta, was expected to continue to Islamabad by night. The airline confirmed that grounded aircraft and relocated equipment were returning to operational zones, while passengers stranded during the closure were being contacted and brought back to airports. The current crisis erupted following the Pahalgam tragedy, which Islamabad had warned would be used by New Delhi as a pretext for military action. On May 7, India launched Operation Sindoor, targeting 6 locations inside Pakistan with 24 missile impacts, killing 33 civilians and injuring 76, according to Pakistan's military. In response, Pakistan downed 5 Indian fighter jets, destroyed brigade headquarters and checkposts along the line of control, and launched aerial operations that brought down 77 Indian drones. The escalation peaked on May 10, when India fired air-to-ground missiles at 3 Pakistani airbases. Hours later, Pakistan retaliated with Operation Bunyanan Marsoos, targeting over 26 Indian military sites, including Udhampur, Pathankot, Adampur, Bhuj, and Bathinda. Despite Russian President Vladimir Putin's declaration of a 3-day ceasefire from May 8 to 10, fighting on the front lines has shown little sign of stopping, according to wounded Ukrainian soldiers. At a field hospital in Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia region, bloodied troops described ongoing shelling, drone attacks, and assaults that defied Moscow's stated pause in hostilities. There hasn't been any ceasefire, said Stanislav, a wounded Ukrainian serviceman, as medics treated shrapnel injuries. Another medic, Ola, added grimly, "They will never change. When they say ceasefire, we expect more shooting." Putin's ceasefire was timed with Russia's Victory Day parade, attended by Chinese President Xi Jinping and other leaders. Ukraine rejected the truce as a propaganda stunt, and both sides accused each other of continuing attacks. Reports confirmed shelling in Sumy and drone strikes in Belgorod, with over 160 armed clashes logged in 24 hours. Meanwhile, in Kyiv, European leaders including those from Britain, France, Germany, and Poland met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and agreed to a new, unconditional 30-day ceasefire starting May 12. Backed by U.S. President Donald Trump, the leaders warned Putin of massive sanctions if Russia fails to comply. Zelensky said the truce must include air, sea, and land operations, though he added, "We have no illusions that the ceasefire will be breached." Separately, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz announced that Germany would no longer publicly disclose details of military aid to Ukraine. Speaking in Kiev, Merz said this shift toward strategic ambiguity was aimed at preventing Russia from gaining a strategic edge. Though transparency had increased under pressure since 2022, Merz stated, "Under my leadership, the debate about arms deliveries, caliber, weapons systems, and so on will be taken out of the public eye." He reaffirmed Germany's continued financial and military support for Ukraine and urged other European nations to follow suit. A deepening rift is emerging within Israel over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's ongoing war in Gaza, as criticism mounts that his decisions prioritize political survival over the lives of captives and the well-being of Israeli society. Netanyahu's March decision to abandon a ceasefire, which could have secured the release of captives held by Hamas, sparked a backlash. Critics argue the war has shifted from its original objectives toward political and personal interests, as described in a letter from Air Force veterans. Similar statements have since come from members of the Navy, elite military units, and the Mossad. Public opposition has grown, particularly following Netanyahu's call to mobilize 60,000 additional reservists. Military analysts and protesters alike warn of exhaustion and declining morale among soldiers. Colonel Seth Crumrich, a former U.S. Special Forces commander, said Israel risks being bogged down in a forever war, warning that Gaza is just going to soak up people. Reports suggest many reservists now refuse duty, driven not by ideology but by fatigue from repeated deployments. While the government claims high turnout, Israeli media have challenged these figures, suggesting real attendance is closer to 60%. The UN has also condemned Israel's Gaza strategy, warning the world may be witnessing another Nakba. A UN committee accused Israel of pursuing wider colonial expansion, alleging ethnic cleansing, mass displacement, and systematic abuse against Palestinians. Meanwhile, domestic pressure continues to build. Thousands rallied in Tel Aviv over the weekend, calling for an end to the war and the return of captives. Demonstrations organized by the Hostages and Missing Families Forum and anti-government groups gathered across Tel Aviv and other cities. Protesters accused Netanyahu of sacrificing the captives and prolonging the conflict for personal political gain.